Armed conflict has been with us since the dawn of civilization. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence of armies as far back as 10,000 BC. Military history has always existed on a grand scale, with legendary battles fought on land, sea, and air. From ancient daggers to modern medals of honor, in expert hands, these relics reveal the stories of those who are no longer here to speak for themselves. Join us as we unlock the secrets of Militaria. Today on Militaria, we look at artifacts once owned by a member of the Wrens, pieces of aircraft nose art, and the belongings of a respected Lieutenant Colonel. Gary looks at the professional and personal effects of Lieutenant Colonel FSL Ford.
We recognize that he'd done something outstanding here early in the war and are making a difference, and he was rewarded for that.
Mark and Barry take us through the history of bomber nose art pieces using World War II Royal Canadian Air Force replicas.
Our archive includes photographs of these, but it's very different to see them from a black and white pictures. They actually vibrant colors that exist actually in the painting of the aircraft.
Jennifer reflects on the time-honoured belongings of a member of the Women's Royal Navy Service.
These women were integral to the operations of the Royal Navy during the First and Second World War. Every time a woman took a job up on the shore, a man was free to go to sea.
My name is Carol Robinson, and I brought in my mother's Wren's record of service and some pictures as well. I think it's very important that we recognize the role that women played in the Second World War.
Affectionately known as the Wrens, the Women's Royal Naval Service was integral to Britain's wartime efforts. The organisation has roots stretching back to World War I. Reactivated in 1939, they symbolise the transformative role of women in naval service. Among them, Marjorie May Hemming, a pay writer, ensured the smooth financial operation of the Navy, directly aiding the war effort. Under the mantra, "Join the Wrens and free a man for the fleet," these women took on diverse and vital roles, from administration to mine spotting. Of the over 75,000 Wrens who served, 303 lost their lives. Their service was a testament not just to wartime necessity, but also to enduring resilience and sacrifice. The legacy of the Wrens, echoing in the post-war era, instilled a deep sense of gratitude for the freedoms their service helped secure. Their commitment shaped the war's outcome and the future of their nation.
Hi, Carol. Welcome to Militaria. What have you brought for us today?
I bought my mother's service record in the Wrens during the Second World War.
What can you tell me about your mom and why she joined the Wrens during the Second World War?
My mom was an only child. She lived in Birmingham, and she joined the Wrens because I think to get away from the apron strings of my grandmother and some adventure, and she wanted to do her part in the war, and she'd already been a bookkeeper, so she joined up as a pay writer.
Oh wow, fantastic. And how old was she when she joined?
It was in 1941, so she was 19.
So that would have been quite an experience for someone so young to be immediately thrown into a big role during the Second World War.
Well, I think her friends were joining up, and she wanted to, be part of that war effort.
WREN stands for the Women's Royal Naval Service. They were women who joined the Royal Navy during the First World War and the Second World War, served not only during the wartime but post-war up until 1993. These women were integral to the operations of the Royal Navy during the First and Second World War. Every time a woman took a job up on the shore, a man was free to go to sea. By the end of the Second World War, 75,000 women were in the Royal Navy service, and that's absolutely phenomenal. Carol, could you tell me a little bit about the certificate of service?
Yes, my mom's maiden name was Marjorie May Hemming, but she was known as Margie May. This shows her address, which is in the city of Birmingham, and then where she was located during the war. She started off at HMS Pembroke, where she learned to be a pay writer, and then she was sent to the HMS Europa, which is in Lowestoft, which is on the east coast of England, and was a major port and also a major harbour for destroyers and minesweepers. And then after the war, she moved to HMS Duke, and that was in the West Midlands in Malvern. And there was a lot of accounting to do after the war. So when that finished, she then got an employment certificate. And you can see from here, it tells her name, a little bit about her at the bottom, an intelligent and accurate pay writer with a cheerful and willing disposition.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So the Navy has always been very meticulous about accounting for everything, every piece of uniform, every ship, every torpedo, and accounting and pay rates were such an important role, especially during the time of war. Really, without the administrative end of war wouldn't operate. Things wouldn't get where they needed to go, people wouldn't be paid, and things would have just been chaos. So she actually was playing an integral role in the wheels of the war machine and helping the Navy succeed their goals. Carol's mother's story is a wonderful example of why we preserve veteran stories. Her work that she did during the wartime was so important, and it's only now in contemporary history that we're actually looking back and looking at the role of women during wartime. So having her mother's service record, the photos, the memories, and the stories, it's absolutely wonderful, and more people should hear those stories. Carol, could you tell me a little bit about this unique object right here in the front?
Oh, this was my mom's whistle. When the war ended, Armistice Day, everybody went out and partied. So you could have a whistle that you blew, you know, with happiness and gaiety. Yes.
Oh, and that's wonderful. And it's in the national colors, and so
Yes,
very
it is.
patriotic.
Yes.
Yeah.
She would have been very proud to know that she'd been noticed. Her contribution was remembered by her family.
Carol, I can imagine your mother had a series of wonderful stories during the wartime, and she probably made a lot of friends.
Yes, she did.
Did she ever relay any of the stories about her service with these other women?
Yes, they were a very close group, the women there in the barracks at Lowestoft. One night, she said there was a direct hit, and she wasn't there. She could see the flames. She could see that there had been a direct hit at the barracks. And when she got back, she was devastated because she knew that some of the Wrens had been injured, and I believe one of them died. She thought that could have been me. And she kept those friendships up. She still kept in touch with by letter. And then she'd say, oh, Betty died. And I could see in her head going back to those times when they'd been together. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to talk about my mom's role in the Wrens, in the Royal Navy. They were intelligent women and they should be recognized.
Carol, thank you so much for bringing these wonderful items in for us
welcome.
to see today. What a wonderful story. She obviously was such a beautiful spirit.
Yes.
What are your future plans for these documents?
I am the last remaining member of my mother's family, so I have a younger son, and he has a keen interest in military history and the history of our family, and so they will go on.
Oh, fantastic. What a beautiful family legacy. Thank you
you.
so much for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
I think it's wonderful that Carol and her son Robert are preserving the memories of Carol's mother. Those physical objects are launching points to stories and to memories. And so without the physical objects, those stories might never be around anymore. And I think it's so wonderful that as a family, they are preserving them and passing them on.
Coming up on Militaria.
We're certainly fortunate to have these examples in the collection because, again, the originals are virtually impossible to find today and they don't exist.
My name is Barry Rodenheiser. I'm the Executive Director and Curator of the Atlantic Canada Aviation Museum. I brought in two replica nose art panels today, one representing 415 Squadron and another 126 Squadron. One panel particularly is part of the aircraft that were recovered from a lake in Norway.
Nose art on military aircraft, a practice dating back to World War I, holds a rich and vibrant place in aviation history. This form of artistic expression became particularly prominent during World War II, where it served not only as a means of identifying aircraft, but also as a symbol of morale for crews and a representation of the cultural and personal sentiments of the time. Pilots and crew members often chose designs that reflected personal or collective identities, sometimes depicting fierce animals, caricatures, or pin-up models. These artworks were more than mere decoration. They were emblems of unity and individuality amidst the vastness of war. Each piece of nose art told a story, be it of hope, defiance, humour, or longing. The tradition of adorning aircraft with these unique, often colourful images became a symbol of the camaraderie and resilience of those who took to the skies. It was a practice that allowed servicemen a small but significant means of self-expression in an environment defined by discipline and danger.
Well, welcome, Barry. We've got a couple examples we brought from the Atlantic Canada Aviation Museum. So what exactly we got?
Well, thank you, Mark. I brought a couple of replica examples of aircraft nose art. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about them.
These particular, reproductions were painted by a researcher, an author, and a painter by the name of Clarence Simonson. This is actually part of a bigger collection that we have at the museum, which includes photographs of examples of World War II nose art from RCF squadrons. We have a number of other pieces in the collection that are actually pieces of aircraft painted with these replica styles. This is probably the best and the most authentic reproductions of nose art available. Painting aircraft in different ways was really in the First World War. During the Second World War, it was taken further, and aircraft personalized by crews, often using artwork that they saw, comic strips, inspiration from something else. And the aircraft were great canvases to showcase the thoughts and the desires of the crews.
So, Mark, would you say that this was a morale thing for the squadrons to personalize their aircraft in this way?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of crews, in particular case in the bomber command crews, they were given an aircraft and that's the one they flew on most of their missions until either they survived the missions or they were shot down. And in a lot of cases, they would paint the aircraft up with some connection. Lots of aircraft, and not only RCF and RCF, United States Army Air Corps, obviously one of the most famous is Memphis Belle, which was painted after the pilot's girlfriend. And it's a symbol of a sort of a showgirl from behind, and everyone sort of knows about the Memphis Belle. Another, of course, example were the atomic bomb B-29s that dropped atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And interestingly enough, all those airframes exist today, and they all carry the artwork on them. This actual piece of metal was part of a Halifax bomber NA-337, which crash landed in a lake in Norway in 1945. Landed on the water and it actually sank to the bottom of the lake. And in 1995, a crew raised it off the bottom of the lake bed and brought it up. The guy that organized it actually has signed this panel too. So Carl Karsgaard is the actual guy that found the Halifax bomber and found it. Carl gave Clarence pieces of metal when they restored the aircraft, and so he could actually paint replicas on it. And so we've got an actual piece of Halifax bomber that literally sat on a lake bed in Norway for almost 50 years and is now the only complete Halifax bomber in the world that's totally being restored.
Mark, could you tell us a little bit about the artist that created these examples of nose art?
So Clarence Simonson was a retired police officer from Edmonton who had spent almost a lifetime researching and basically created a book. And it's a great book that covers all these particular artworks. He was also a very talented artist because he's recreated these examples here too, and he's the foremost painter of replica nose art around. And we're certainly fortunate to have these examples in the collection because, again, the originals are virtually impossible to find today and they don't exist. It also is a very misunderstood piece of RCF, REF folklore in a sense, because you can actually see the artwork. It's very vibrant. In a lot of cases, most of the pictures you see are black and white. You don't realize what exactly is on the side of the aircraft or what it's done. And some had such short life that you didn't even know that they were painted that way. Examples that we have today are the only way we can recreate them because very few examples survive due to the nature of the aircraft. Either were shot down or they were just basically scrapped at the end of the war and pushed aside. We obviously have photographs, and a lot of our archive includes photographs of these, but it's very different to see them from a black and white pictures, the actually vibrant colors that exist actually in the painting of the aircraft.
So Mark, does this tradition of nose art still exist today? And if it does, what forms does it take today? Interestingly
enough, certain examples in the modern RCAF, there's some aircraft that actually have nose art still on them. One particular example was when the RCF were flying Sea King helicopters towards the end of their service life. They actually put original World War II nose art from the actual squadrons that had been flying actually on the Sea Kings, and they flew them in the Haiti operations. They've also, in the RCF, they've actually painted up modern day aircraft in World War II paint schemes. There's an original Harvard 2 aircraft, which they train on today, is painted up as an original Harvard aircraft in 1942 colors, yellow. So Barry, we have a plan for the items. What's the proposed plan to display them?
So the plan is to have these on display in our front lobby. And of course, the story behind the panels is more important actually than the panels themselves. So we want to make sure that we're able to tell that story in a meaningful way to our visitors. So yes, the plan is in the near future to have these on display in the lobby and to have interpretation for them in place. You need to have a human connection with every artifact. Panels are nice to look at, but people want to know, why are they on display? They want to know the story behind them. The story is very important.
Well, Barry, I think these have been great examples of part of what are in our collection, and also an important part of what is the nose art collection. And I'd certainly like to thank you for bringing them today. And obviously, we can look forward to the future where we actually have them on display and we actually have a supporting display to go with it.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
The examples of nose art we have with us today is certainly examples of something that's an art that's not really recognized. But it is an art in itself, and most people don't realize that, but there's a whole genre and artist style to them. And it's a great example of how common objects are used throughout war.
Coming up on Militaria.
During the First World War, the unit would follow in behind the front lines to collect the wounded, patch them up, and move them back to a further part in the evacuation chain.
My name's Major Marcus Brower, retired. I brought in some ephemera from a collection of Lieutenant Colonel Ford's, which he wrote during World War I at the 1st Canadian Casualty Clearing Unit. Lieutenant Colonel Ford was very good at putting pieces together and building a story so that we could enjoy it someday.
In the grim panorama of World War I, Lieutenant Colonel Frederick Samuel Lamson Ford emerged as a figure of critical importance within the Canadian military medical ranks. Before the advent of organised military medical units, the care of the wounded was often chaotic and rudimentary. Lieutenant Colonel Ford's stewardship of the No. 1 Canadian Casualty Clearing Station marked a significant evolution in frontline medical care. Under his command, the station was at the forefront of implementing systematic treatment and triage of the war wounded, a process that saved countless of lives and shaped the future of military medicine. Ford's legacy is interwoven with the story of the Canadian Expeditionary Force, a testament to Canada's extensive contribution to the Great War. The No. 1 Canadian Casualty Clearing Station was part of a vast and complex network of medical services that extended from the trenches to the home front. It stood as a crucial intermediary for the wounded, bridging the gap between the frontline and base hospitals. Ford, a leader both admired and respected, ensured that his unit not only met the physical needs of the soldiers, but also offered a semblance of comfort and hope amidst the horrors of battle.
Welcome to Militaria, Marcus. Can you tell us what you brought in today? I saw a couple of big boxes full of material, and I'm intrigued to find out what it is.
Certainly, thanks for having me. The material we've got today came from an antique store, and it contains the material from Lieutenant Colonel Ford and his service time in the 1 Canadian Casualty Clearing Center during World War I. It's got the maps, his documentation, his pay books, war diaries, even a book that hasn't been published yet.
So, Marcus, can you tell us what you found out going through these documents, what this unit was and what it did?
Certainly. During the First World War, the unit would follow in behind the front lines to collect the wounded, patch them up, and move them back to a further part in the evacuation chain.
So, Marcus, as you've gone through all this information, what do you see as the historical significance of this unit? Like, how do you see this?
Well, for me, I'm very interested in historical material, and I was also a member of the Canadian Forces Health Services. A lot of the material is written material written by their adjutants, so that I can see material from World War I and the reasons they did it then and the reasons we still do it today.
You can see a lot of the policies and procedures that were in place and crafted by Lieutenant Colonel Ford have stood the test of time until today.
As a matter of fact, when Lieutenant Colonel Ford was doing his training with his troops. They developed what the layout would look like, what equipment would be needed, and of course they adjusted very quickly in theater once they found out what worked and what didn't work. Gary, what have you found out from your research of the unit, particularly its call for volunteers?
What I've found out based on Nova Scotia's part in the Great War, there's a section on this unit and Colonel Ford. They had returned from Sussex, New Brunswick, and he felt he had a unit that was ready to go. So I believe it was on the 2nd of August, he cabled Ottawa. And then on the 10th, he received a cable back from Ottawa saying, okay, you're good, mobilize your unit. And so he realized that in order to mobilize, he needed more people. He talked to the mayor of Liverpool and arranged to have a town hall. So he spoke, explained what his unit was and what they had to do. So he quickly filled his ranks. And I believe it was about the 14th or so, they moved off to Valcartier, where the 1st contingent was getting together, the 1st and 2nd divisions. Initially, they were actually providing medical services to the camp. I don't know whether it was him or whether it was actually his superiors realized that his unit may not have been what they needed at the time, so they took doctors and nurses and other soldiers, put it into his clearance hospital, and that's how they got the casualty clearing section, the unit that he then took over to England. Marcus, can you explain to us how you understand the medical evacuation chain as it was in the First World War?
Basically, there was the frontline people who were getting hit, and they were carried back by stretcher bearers to a casualty collection point. And that's where they could receive initial first aid. Then they were moved back to, in this case, the casualty clearing units. From the casualty clearing units, they would go further back to the Army hospitals. And after that, if required for long term, they would be shipped home.
So basically, the soldier went as far back as he needed to go to recover and then return to the front.
That's correct. The objective is to get them back into service as quickly as possible.
They had the ability to expand quite quickly, like go from 200 beds to 900 beds. Near the end of the war, they set up 3 of them beside each other so that when one filled up, the next one filled up, third one filled up. By the time the third one fills up, first one's empty again. And that's how many casualties were going through these units. At that time, they were looking at like 1,000 casualties that they were looking after, which is a lot of people. So Marcus, thank you so much for bringing all these artifacts in. This is the tip of the iceberg with these 4 artifacts. Lieutenant Colonel Ford was I think, a very important personality in Canadian military history and medical history. So much so that he was recognized in 1915 with the Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George for the way he formed his unit and the way it was serving in the front. In my mind, this wasn't an end of the war gimme, thanks for coming out. We recognize that you have done something outstanding here early in the war and are making a difference, and he was rewarded for that. I think this is a really historical, significant group. So what do you plan on doing with all this material?
When I first got it, I offered it to the War Museum in Ottawa, and they suggested it go to Archives Canada. However, I don't think that it would get any exposure in archives, and we are going to digitize it. With all of the war diaries and journals and maps and photographs, I'm going to be rewriting the book that Lieutenant Colonel Ford wrote himself, basically just transcribing the information verbatim so that people can see what it was like at the time.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Once again, thank you so much for bringing this all in. I think it's very interesting, and it is a wonderful bit of history.
Thank you very much.
My general thoughts on the artifacts, actually a bit of wonderment that they all survived and they all survived together. It's the pieces of paper that tell the bigger story. And in this case, there's boxes upon boxes of material that tell the story not only of Colonel Ford, but of the unit that he raised and that served through the entire war. You've got the opportunity to have an entire story.